Good morning. I promise you, this is not coffee. It's tea. I wish it was coffee. I'm off that. Almost all caffeine. Our next panel is being brought to you by the students from Concordia University in St. Paul. I'm going to have each student introduce themselves. They will get into their topic. Most of these students are very near and dear to my heart. Two of them are like my little siblings that I never wanted. And I'll just leave it.
Hi, my name is Najee Dennis. I'm a psychology major at Concordia University. I'm a second-year student, but I'll be graduating next spring.
Good morning. I'm Kara Fajay. I'm a sophomore at Concordia. My major is sociology with a double minor in criminal justice and English with an interest in criminal law.
Hello, I'm Mohammed. I'm a freshman at Concordia University. I'm a freshman. And my major is marketing, minor in business management.
I'm Emily Barton. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm a psychology major, and I'm a junior at Concordia.
I'll be facilitating. I'm D'Angelo Friends, a psychology major at Concordia, graduating this spring with honors in psychology, and I plan to continue my schooling in counseling. And I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, the topic of discussion today will be being black in America. Do you see what I see? And what I believe this question is asking is, how are minority youth viewed in America today? When such acts as the killing of our adolescents, such as Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and Oscar Grant, when you have things like this happening in our society, and how do we view them? What should be done about it? And what is being done about it? So, and the misrepresentation of the community members who are doing something positive, but media turns out and make it into a scandal, such as Pointergate this past fall. You know, when community members going out collecting votes, and just you hear things that's very bizarre, and you know, we ask ourselves what should be done. Or the question we can ask ourselves is, how do we view ourselves? And the question you may want to ask yourself is, do we act that way because of how we are treated, or are we treated because of the way we act? So they already introduced themselves, so we'll start off with our first question is, how do you feel black people are viewed today in America?
Yeah, I'll start off. I feel in our society today, I feel like black people are viewed as criminals and a threat to this country. For example, police targets are African American and youth. People with brown skin have always been target of white hatred and terrorism in the U.S. Our brothers and sisters need to understand that police brutality is not something new. It's been happening since slavery. The only way we can stop brutality is to educate and behave smart around the cops. And I feel like in society, we need to bring that to the table.
On the opposite side of that spectrum, as a white American, I feel as though I see African Americans as being advocates, trying to have positive role models, have to not be oppressed anymore, and they're sick of being ignored. I definitely feel like they're trying to teach the past.
And going off of what they say, I kind of feel like, you know, African Americans are still the underdogs in this country, that, you know, we are being underlooked, that we are trying to achieve so much, but we are still being held back, and that's one important view I think that needs to be changed today.
Well, I think that it depends on which side you're viewing it from. From an African American's perspective, I feel like we're one of the strongest races that I've ever been, because we've had to face so much adversity and still have come up on top, like Obama, and we have people like that, but you don't hear about those people unless you really work at it. But from another perspective, like from a white American perspective or any other race, seeing black people, they would see the media standpoint and go, oh, well, these people, they're worth nothing, they're destined for failure. So I think it's about how you view yourself and which point of view you think matters the most.
What would you say, what are the misconceptions of youth today?
There are so many misconceptions in our youth today. For example, one of them are students from poor family can't succeed in life. This is false because I'm the first generation in my family to go to college and broke that cycle of going to that college. I've succeeded in so many ways in life due to my hard work and consistency. there are so many poor families that have succeeded in their life, and this is the misconception they have in our society today. And I believe that if you work hard, stay dedicated, nothing can stop you.
I believe one of the misconceptions is that we're lazy. And I think a lot of people think we're not doing anything, but I believe that there's ripples to everything. And you don't get to see every single person's ripple, but it eventually will all add up together to make a wave. But if you don't respect everybody's ripple, then there's no progress. My grandpa always says that a broken clock is right 2 times a day, because at 12 o'clock in the morning, it's right, and at 12 o'clock at night, it's right. So everybody has a purpose, and no matter how little their ripple is, it still can make an effect.
I feel like another misconception is that social media, only has a bad influence on our society. And I feel like, yes, it can bring bad information, but it is also a way for us to see another perspective, because news media is not the only way to get information. You have to question it, and through social media, you can see other perspectives. You can see how youth views what is going on around the world.
And then agreeing with Najee, I believe everyone does have a purpose, and kind of African Americans do have that, misconception that we're loud, we're not driven, we're uneducated, and it's sad that we all kind of get put in that one group, even though we are trying to reach out, trying to change people's minds, saying no, we're not all the same, and
Now, Emily touched on it a little bit, but we'll go further in depth with the question of how does the media and news impact how others view us?
The media has a big factor in our society these days. As I want to quote Malcolm X, who was a civil rights activist. He said, "The media, the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent look guilty and to make the guilty innocent, and that's the power because they control the minds of the masses." I want to bring up an example of a 9/11 that happened. They build a weight on the Muslim society, and which is sad because the media portrays that every Muslim is a terrorist. So I feel like they have the power for that. So
I believe that the media has huge power, but we have more power because you put power into what you put money into. You put power into what you like on Facebook. So if you challenge the things that people are saying about you, then you can change the perspective that you're being viewed on. So I think as a people and as a society, we need to hold people accountable for the things they're saying about us and do the research. Is this really like someone who has vital information, or is this just hogwash that is just another schema to color what we look like as a people in a negative light?
And then also going off of that, I think, besides media with the music, social media, things like that, I think it has a lot to do. People just look like, one type of rapper is talking about girls, sex, money. So, I'm going to think every person wants to go after that, and they're for that when, when they're actually uneducated and they don't look deeper into, more of a concept when it comes to looking at different African Americans.
All right. Kara touched on it also on that question, but how much effect do you believe that social media, music, and other outlets have an impact on other views?
Like I said, one of the music is hip hop music has torn down our community, and for example, tell me why violence and drug uses are increasing every year because of that. Where it's coming from? Well, it's coming from bad music. For example, according to the New York Times, teenagers listen to an average of nearly 2.5 hours of music per day. And guess what they're listening to? Drug use, smoking weed, and all that, fantasizing about girls. And they start to experiment that and look like, okay, let's try it, And I feel like that will lead to violence and more increasing of
I definitely agree that music creates prejudices, norms, stereotypes, and it can have a positive influence. It creates such a draw, catchy lyrics. It could have such a positive influence on youth, but instead I feel as though it's used negatively to try to just get money and numbers and fame.
I guess I agree and disagree because I think if you think of like the Europe white people's society, right, and you think of punk rock, and you think of country, and you think of rock and roll, punk rock talks about drugs and sex and alcohol, but it didn't tear down their whole race because they have more than one story. Because black people only have one story, and our one story is the negative light. So, because there's so much positivity that can come from rap music too, because there was Public Enemy, there's people who are still fighting for black people and to show that we are more than what they make us out to be, but those people aren't funded. And the people that are funded are the ones who are talking about the negative things. So again, I say that you have to put your money where your mouth is, because if you're only going to pay for Lil Wayne's music, then that's all you're going to get. But if you decide to listen to somebody like Public Enemy, Ice Cube, who are talking about things that are relevant, then you might get a new outcome. So I think there's two sides to every coin, because there's negatives to the music, but there's also positives. I feel like everybody's story should be told. You know, some people feel like, oh, Tyler Perry, he's just this and that, but that's somebody's story, and their story is still important. It might not be your story, so tell your story is my response to that, because I feel like some people the more impoverished stories get trampled, like they're not worthy, they're not this, but there's value to everyone's story, and everyone's story should be told, I think.
Preach.
How do you view yourselves? How does others view you, such as peers? And do you have any negative views of your peers?
I view myself as I'm a hard worker. I mean, because I really don't care what people think about me, because at the end of the day, I'll reach that destination. So I give back to the community, which I do. I'm involved in New Lands, which is a program that helps young middle schoolers to break barriers into the to break barriers into like that poverty life and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm a hard worker and I'm very persistent. And how do I view my peers? I mean, I respect them. You know, like it's not like I don't like judge them. So that's why I always stay away from judging others. So. Yep.
I view my life and my time at Concordia as an opportunity to learn about different cultures, putting myself in situations that I would otherwise not be in, making the uncomfortable comfortable, and just like going away from like the Minnesota nice. I know I have a lot of family members who live by this, to not be passive aggressive and to move on and be sorry.
And then I kind of just see myself as a diligent worker. I'm a people person. I love working hard. You know, kind of like Muhammad on what he said. Like, he doesn't care what people say about him, but, you know, I am going to let my light shine so men may see my good works. And kind of like, as I see, like, my peers and friends, you know, I don't judge them. I don't question them. But, you know, there are those moments where it's like, you do this, and then you say you don't want to be judged, but then that kind of makes me question, like, what are your goals, and, like, what are you trying to do if you're trying to change that contraception about yourself? But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not trying to hold you back from anything, so I'm just, you know, gotta stay and do me, and
That's a good question. How do I view myself? Okay. I guess I view myself as an anarchist, because I dare to have conversations that other people don't have in public. And because if it's true, it's true, and you should say it. That's how I feel. Even the truth should be spoken in the light and not in the dark, in little situations where, oh, I'm comfortable with these people, so I'm going to talk about the issues that are actually bothering me. But when I'm around these people, I have to change my views a little bit. So I believe that I'm someone who likes to press people's buttons when they need to be pressed. And when you're not holding yourself to the highest standard possible, I hold you to that standard. I guess how I view my peers, we had some 5th grade students come in just yesterday to our school, and there was this little boy. He asked the president of our university, what advice do you have to inspire young black business owners? and he's 11 years old. So I was like, ooh, okay, all right, what a question. So, and then as our program went on, he's cutting up in the audience. His teacher's like, get over here, sit right here. And I could have seen him as, okay, he's a smart boy, but he's a troublemaker. He's not gonna go anywhere in life. He's, doing all these things. But instead, I decided to talk to him and go, you know what, you're very smart, but you have to be better. Because you're supposed to be better than all of us, because we're here to make you better. And I believe that you have to hold people to a higher expectation. If you let people stay at their level, that's the place they'll always stay. And as long as we're holding everyone up, we'll all rise to the occasion. So that's how I view my peers, as someone who I can emulate, but also elevate.
That was deep. Is there a disconnect within our community? Do older generations understand you? Like, as far as you said, your grandpa, I guess you get wisdom from him, but like, where you would see a community member or even a church member or wherever you have an outlet where older people are present, do you feel like it's a disconnect from their troubles and pain to yours?
I think you just have different troubles and pains. I don't think I think there's more things in common than there are different. I like to use religion as an example, because my mother's side of my family grew up in the Nation of Islam, so Muslim, and my father's Methodist Christian. So I come from very different backgrounds. But even in religion, the basis, the general idea is the same. And the principles are the same. And I think the struggle that our generation is going through and the past generation has gone through is more the same than it is different. And once we can come together and actually listen to one another, the young listen to the old and the old listen to the young, because they all have something to bring to the table, that we can find those similarities and start to make changes instead of deciding, oh, this person's problem is more important, it's more relevant right now. But everybody's problem was relevant at one point, it always will be, because you don't want to recreate or repeat itself.
I feel like from the older generation to the younger generation, they feel as though we do have a disconnect, as Najee was saying earlier, that we have bad communication. That is true to an extent, because there's less person-to-person communication, but through technology, we're able to get more communication out, to get more perspectives, not just in your community, because through social media, you can talk to everybody across the whole United States. So I feel like there is a positive and a negative.
Yeah, I do believe that there is a disconnect, because our generation just wants to be understood, and I believe like the acting out with like the crime, it's just all for a cry for help, and then they just want the older generation to understand. And so once they understand, we can come together, kind of get on the same page, and like in the end, hopefully just have the same understanding. And I believe like our generation needs to be like, there are people who are trying to help us. We just have to, hear them out, reach that reaching hand.
Yeah, I agree with Carol, like our older generation. I just want like our older generation and our current generation to come together as a one nation and just work together, because they know what happened in their past, and the newer generation know like what's going on, so that'll be great collab,
And kind of going off what Mohammed says, like the older generations does have a lot to teach us, because they went before our time. They already went through what we're going through right now. But I believe our generation believes like since they're older, like they can't relate to us, and that's one thing our generation needs to see today.
Alright, thank you. What are some ways to better communicate within the community across generations and subcultures?
I believe you have to meet people where they're at. If you're trying to force people to be something they're not, if you come into a community that is in shambles and expect them to be a Fortune 500 company, you're not going to get what you want. So when you come in, you have to take it for what you got, and then try to build upon that in your communication style and the way that you portray yourself to the people, because a lot of people feel like they're being judged. So I think that's part of the younger generation, is I feel like they're not listening to us, they're just judging us because I wear this or I listen to that. But if people just come in and say, I take you as you are, who you are, and we're both going to be better because of this conversation, I think the communication lines will be easily opened up. But if we continue on the path that we're going, and okay, well you've addressed this way, so I really don't want to talk to that one. Well, that person in your generation, I can handle them. They seem like they are more educated, they have things going on, but you never know what this person has to offer and what they're bringing to the table. So I think it's important that we take judgment out of the equation and just listen openly.
Kind of going off what Najee said, yeah, our generation does need to be more open. Like, I think first of all, we need to understand how grateful we are to be where we are today, and that how our past generations have fought for us, to get us to this place, and then we kind of just need to get that understanding and not feel like we're being judged, that we actually are being helped.
I think it's important to know where you've come from and to know your past, but I feel like it's also important to look into the future and know how much potential there is.
Yeah. And also, the biggest key is like communication. Just communicate with our kids, about that police brutality. Like, for example, we can find a solution for that if you like behave smart around the cops, not hesitate, do silly stuff. That's what causes it. And the police have like authority to take away your life within seconds. So it's better to talk to our kids and inform our kids how to and educate our kids. I personally believe that.
Doesn't matter what other people think about you.
Personally, it doesn't matter, to be honest, because like I said earlier, like in the long run, it will be just me and my close friends. So, I mean, if they it doesn't matter, to be honest. So.
I definitely don't think it matters what people think. I have a grandmother who is very much racist, and I could have followed on that path, but instead I questioned it, and I investigated, and I put myself in a different kind of situation, and I don't care what she thinks. We might not have the greatest relationship, but I love where I am, so.
I'm going to have to say no, it doesn't matter what people say about me, but of course it's going to make an impact. Like, a lot of times I get that I'm soft-spoken, that does make me think a lot about, how I'm talking, how I'm presenting myself. But, at the end of the day, I do have to realize that my biggest critic is myself. And then I also have to remember, at the end of the day, at the end of my life, I'm not going to be standing before you. I'm going to be standing before God, He's the only one that can judge me. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to that, saying that I am my biggest critic. No one can tell me that I'm this or that, because at the end, it's not going to make a big difference.
I don't think it matters what other people think of you that much, but I think you have to listen to what other people are saying too, because it can help you to reflect on your behaviors. Sometimes people are telling the truth about you and you haven't even seen it. So, but as far as this topic, I don't think so. I think how you view yourself is more important, and knowing who you are and what you stand for, and that your behaviors are emulating what you stand for. And if people are calling you out on, hey, you said you believe in this, but you're doing that, accept it and go, okay, well, I can change for the better. Because at the end of the day, we leave this earth alone. We came into this earth alone. So you are your biggest critic, like Kara said, but you are your biggest motivator too. So you have to take initiative to be better and listen carefully to what other people say, because sometimes people try to tell you that, oh, you're not doing this right, just so that they can push you down so they can elevate themselves. Just like if people put you on a podium, they just want to knock you down instead of lift you up. And you have to find those people that are willing to lift you up and not knock you down. But you yourself have to be the biggest person who's going to be the biggest motivation in your life, because you're the only person who's going to be there every single day, day in and day out, telling yourself either good things or bad things.
I usually call it just take it with a grain of salt. Final question would be, how do we move forward as people within the community, as the new generation and diversity?
I think we continue to educate from the past about ourselves. Personal connection is the biggest learning tool. When you have a personal story, people learn from that, and then you're able to learn the other person's story as well, growing and learning.
I think we have to take back our history and take back our name and take back our pride, because we've been buried with all this negative information about who we are, and underneath it all, you know, you take diamonds and you have to get all the rust off first to find that there's beauty underneath it. And there's so much beauty underneath us, but we need to take the shovels ourselves and dig away all that pain and all that suffering to find out that we are beautiful people. And all the people that came before us were beautiful people. And it's my job, my duty, and how I live every single day to become a more beautiful person.
And I would say it would have to be, you know, building that connection with our elders and our past generations, because I can't stress enough how important it is to know our heritage and know where we came from and to know why we're here today. And, you know, once we do that, I think that'll be a big stepping stone into moving forward, because of course it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time after time, but, you know, if we are determined, if we do want to get somewhere, then it all starts with that connection.
Yeah, I also personally believe like being there with your kids, you know, there's a lot of kids who don't have parents and stuff, and like loving them every morning, saying I love you and all that kind words will basically like motivate them, and hopefully like will solve that problem, because I envision myself in 50 years, like racism won't go on until we have leaders in our community and all that basic stuff. So we got to start by basic.
Okay, thank you, Jones. Now we'll open up the panel for discussion and questions that formulated as the panelists were speaking. We'll start with you. Yeah.
Okay, if you had any obstacles, how did you overcome them? Any obstacles in life, or as you going through your career?
Yeah, I can speak on that. Yep, I've been through many obstacles through my life, from going like, you know, being in like racist situations, or, you know, having like self-doubt where it's in I can't do this, I can't do that. But fortunately, like I grew up having like a preacher as a father, so, you know, I have that religious background. You know, I just have to keep telling myself, you know, at the end of the day, like, am I going to be satisfied with myself? Like, is it just that important if I want to reach my goals? And so, like I was saying before, at the end of the day, it does come back to me. Like Nadi said, you are your biggest motivator. So kind of going off of that, you know, how I just overcome it, saying I know what I want at the end of the day. I know what I want to be in the future. So I just kind of have to remember that to keep me going.
I had the obstacle of getting into college. I had a very low GPA in high school, but what got me through was fighting. I had to learn to fight for myself, and it took just one teacher to tell me that anything was possible. I mean, that's like the most basic thing to say, and you hear it all the time, but I just took it to heart, and I had a great advisor who fought with me, and my family. I was the first to go to college, and just like I learned to fight for myself and find people to support. Like, you definitely can't do it alone. You have to fight for yourself, but you need support. You need positive influences, and to search for them. They're not just going to be handed to you. So I would definitely say that.
For me, it was during my freshman year in high school. I transitioned from diverse school to all new white school, because I graduated from Medina High School. It was all white rich schools, you know, all the rich students. So that was a big challenge for me, because I had to learn a new environment. It was like a culture shock. Like, the people were like so white, you know. I wasn't used to that environment, you know. So it was as years growth I went through. I joined activities, I did sports and stuff. So that was biggest, you know, that was a challenge for me too. Yeah, because you don't see the people, or like where's my people, you know. It's all rich white school students. So yeah.
I guess I accept obstacles as a challenge that needs to be met, and I believe that you can change your situation through every thought. So if I think more positively about what's happening in my life, then I can make a positive out of it. You can't make a negative out of a positive. So just make a positive out of a positive and make it easier. So I think if something's hard, let's just do it. Let's face it head on. We're not gonna push it back to the background and procrastinate about it. Let's face it. Let's talk about it. Let's get through it. And once we gotten through it, we can talk about, wow, that was hard, but we made it. So that's how I face all my obstacles.
My question is actually.
Sorry, can we get your name as well before you ask the question?
Sandra King, Minnesota State University,
Okay.
and Cato. My question is actually pretty similar to hers. It was, it's about, the terms we are hearing nowadays in higher education. We're hearing a lot about persistence, completion, retention of students. So as you face these different challenges, what type of resources would you say, or what in general would you say would help students who may not be as motivated as you are?
I think support. Because I feel like sometimes you don't feel loved. And especially if you think of like the elementary education system, I remember going through and I was like, okay, well, all right, all my teachers are white, okay, they don't really understand me, they don't really love me, they don't really support me. But as I transitioned to a school that was more diverse, it was like, oh, these people understand me, they care about me, they care about if I succeed or if I fail. So I think that's the biggest thing that you can add to someone's life, and retention, I think, is loving them. Because if you love them, then you care about them. They know that you care if they succeed or fail. But if no one cares if you succeed, then it's easy just to drop out.
I feel like it's important that if peers are not making connections with staff or don't have mentors at the school, that as students we can support them. We can make those connections. If you see somebody that seems to be struggling, or I've talked to many students who have told me, I'm thinking about dropping out, and I ask them why, and they say like, I haven't made connections here. Like, we might not be the best advocates for the school, but it might be one stepping stone, one connection to keep them there. So I would say us.
Yeah, for me, it's like every student doesn't have the same mindset, So for me, it's like, remind them, like, what are you here for, Tell them, like, what's your goals, what's your accomplishments. Give them some goals and deadlines, like, what do you want to achieve in 5 years or 10 years. So I feel like, since that mindset will click them, they'll think and ponder, so give them some advice or some.
And then I feel like us being like in college and students, we have to be support for our peers, because not everyone's comfortable with talking to like adults or counselors. So kind of what Mohammed said, you have to like be there for them, give them goals, make sure they're doing all right, check in with them, just kind of like be more than a friend, just kind of be like their friend, like as a counselor, because not everyone's going to be comfortable talking to someone older, like an authority figure.
Oh, awesome. Like, I'm not a panelist, but I do want to touch on this a little bit. It varies case by case, like a lot of them said. And just, especially someone who doesn't necessarily have that motivation as the next student, is really just coming back to finding that common ground, where you can build off of. And I'm a visual learner, so if I see something that, okay, I can see myself in that role, then, having those visuals for them, if it may be for, if it were a minority student, seeing like if they inspired to be a lawyer or a doctor or just a teacher or a police officer, actually having that visual of that person in that role. So that's my little 2 cents. We're gonna go with him, then I got you.
I have more of a comment than a question. At the beginning of the panel, I hear you guys discuss about hard work is the best with success. And I believe that it doesn't really correlate with reality in society, because you have to work smart than work hard, because working hard is more physical than mental. So for example, you have a job somewhere, you're the hardest person, you sweep, you do everything, but if you doesn't understand it, just the way the system is structured, in the way like the work is structured, like how you're getting paid, like as in like the wage wise, if you doesn't understand that, you'll be the hardest worker, but you want to see, you want to get that right amount of pay you deserve. Maybe to the society, we make it seem like, oh, the hardest working people are the ones who succeed, and that's not the case. because those who are also succeed in many different ways. Some who are successful didn't even work at all to be successful. So I believe the ideology of working hard will lead to success really mislead people in this society in a way.
Why do you feel our generation today, Nathan Martin, Southern University at New Orleans, why do you feel that our generation today are afraid of trying?
Can I touch that? I'm one of the old people you were talking about. Yeah, I used to be young. My name is Joe Marion, and I've been Director of Career Counseling at Southern University in New Orleans for the last close to 15 years, and I was a counselor in career counseling before that, and I was a flunk out of Xavier University before that. Came to Southern and found myself. One of the things I noted in my own career, I was a little afraid to talk to older people because I thought they would figure out how ignorant I was. As it turned out, they already knew. You know, you just don't know as much as you know. You know, you guys are 20 years old now. I heard you say, I look back at these 5th graders and, you know, you can go, boy, if I knew then what I know now. So hit me your question again.
Why are they afraid to try?
I think one of the big reasons is because the television and maybe your best friend or somebody else has made a lot of false advertisements. You know, oh, you do this, you're gonna get that. You know, oh, free credit score, call this number, and next thing you know, your visa's being billed. So I think what it is people promising you things that just were not delivered. You know.
To add on to that, I would say, when I was younger, I'm a perfectionist, so I don't like failure. And I think some people just don't try because if you don't try, you don't fail. So if I can get a B and I'm like, I didn't even study, I didn't even try, but I made it happen. So I think that's why some people just go, I'm not gonna try. I'm just gonna let it be because then I don't fail. And if good things come out of it, well, I didn't have to do anything to get it.
But you do fail because you didn't try.
Well, I feel like kind of going off what Najee said, like, I hope this, like, kind of answers your question. I just feel like a lot of youth today are discouraged because, you know, if they had, like, just that one experience where they try to do something, they try to go out their boundary, and then, you know, they got shut down and they say no to, that can mess up a person for life. Like, I had a situation with that. Like, you know, I was trying to become a leader, you know, back in high school, my sophomore year, and I got told, you know, I can't do this, I don't have the motivation to, I'm this and that, I actually had to, like, take a seat for quite a while. Like, I didn't start being active until my freshman year of college. Like, that just kind of messed me up for a few years, because that made me question myself a lot. So, you know, am I actually good enough? Like, can I do this and actually get something out of it? But, you know, I just kind of just had to get back on the horse and try again, and I think that's, like, a big problem with our youth today. Like, they just get too discouraged, and that can just really mess them up.
And let me add something to that. How can we help them understand that we all put on our clothes the same way, and a yes or a no, a person can say yes and you keep it moving forward, and a person say no, but you would have to, how do we get them to understand that even though that person said no, you can find yes somewhere?
I think you have to be there for them because there's not enough people in people's lives. Because it's easy to say, okay, well, if I was in your situation, I would have done this. But you weren't in my situation, and you weren't there for me when I was in that situation. To show somebody that you put the socks on the same way, you got to sit right next to them and show them that I'm putting my socks on, now put your socks on. That we are equal and we are the same, and I'm going to support you through your hard times, and I'm going to praise you during your good times.
And going off of what Najee said, you know, if you are around a person who says no, doesn't mean that they exactly don't believe in you, but that means you just kind of need to step back from them and find someone who sees your vision that you're trying to provide. Yeah.
Something that we all experience that we're not aware is called internalized racism. And so when you think about why do people not try, why do they not do things, we don't realize what impact the media, all of these things have on what we believe about ourselves. And I think, again, we've heard throughout this conference, and we'll continue to hear it, if we don't know our history, we don't believe in our history, we don't focus on what people have been able to achieve despite what people told them they can't do, we still won't get it. And we'll continue this cycle of believing that we aren't smart enough, we aren't capable enough, not motivating ourselves. And so all the messages that are out there, we don't realize how much we're buying into those and feeling that we're less than. And then how do we get people to, as you said, move beyond it? We have to get to know more about who we are as a people, what we've contributed, become more aware, get more facts, become more knowledgeable about what is happening, because knowledge is power. And if we don't have it, we're going to continue to operate under doubt, ignorance, and a whole lot of other things. But a lot of that is what we internalize ourselves. We have to build up our confidence and belief of who we are and what we have to offer. We got to work on that. Otherwise, we won't try more things.
And I'm sorry, we didn't get your name.
Oh. Cheryl Chapman, Concordia University.
I want to touch on that. Josiah Hines, Concordia University. For me, as far as why people are afraid to try, I've seen a whole lot of people that psych themselves out before they can even attempt to try. They're like, oh, I've never heard about this before, therefore I don't know this information, so I can't present this information to this teacher. They're asking this question and they expect me to know it, but they're asking the question to see if you know it, not for you to have to know it before it's been presented. That's the point of school, for there to be new information brought. So if someone isn't psyching themselves out before anything has even occurred, then they can try. But if you're looking around like, oh, she knows the answer, he knows the answer, I don't know the answer, so I can't do it. But that's not the case.
To add to what she's saying, I believe in society, we made a lot of things imagery, like everything is used as an image. So for example, like a person who for me, like when I was growing up, I played hockey, and people was shocked that I know how to play hockey. I can skate because I'm black, because the image of hockey is placed on a white man, you know. And when it comes to intelligence, the image of intelligence is really placed on Europeans. And most Africans don't really understand that's why I don't like to separate African history with African American, because I believe if you're African American, because I'm African, right? I was born in Africa, but when I come here, I'm African American. I'm looked at as African American despite that I was born in Africa. So I always tell my African American friends that you're African, don't ever try to separate the difference, because the imagery of, if you're African, you have a rich history, because African was the first to build civilizations. So African Americans know that. If you go into academia in schools and try to dispute knowledge, you'll understand that it's not just intelligence don't restrict to Europeans, because the Europeans built that civilization way after we had civilization was built thousands of years, you know. So I feel like imagery, I can kind of make people feel like, well, since this image is put on, because as human beings, we kind of see stuff. Like we see the world as image-wise, put it that way. So if we start to understand our history, she emphasized on history, we start to understand our history, and understand that we do have a rich history, we do have academic history, and we will try to pretty much, someone put it like, understand that we do have image of us in academia and in building what we have today in society. Like we have like for example paper, you know, like the Egyptians were the first to build to write on paper, and the Egyptians were like Africans like me that look like me. And African Americans probably not, when they know that, so they'll feel like, well, I'm not smart enough as a white person, because I was told a white person is the reason why everything exists in this society. So I feel like if we look at images and understand that we do have images and stuff that we have today of us, our people, African people, that it will help us to understand that we're not just here for no reason, put it that way, in a way.
I want to add one quick thing too. There's this thing called cycle of oppression that we find ourselves in, because what happens is, if you name any group, whether it's African American males, then you have people, whatever people's perception of that person is, that's how they treat them. Mm-hmm. Then people react to what the expectations are. And then people then say, see, I mean, you could take the cops, for example. made the way that there's an assumption that this African American male is going to do this, this, and that. So they treat him with suspicion. They treat him with disrespect, treat him with whatever. Then the person responds like, "You expected him to act like," and so they react that way. Then the label is just reinforced to say, "See, they're violent, they're loud, they're destructive, they're this," and so we find ourselves kind of almost living up to those expectations. The way we're treated and oppressed, we respond that way, and then we become still labeled. So we have to break that cycle of oppression and how people perceive us and how we respond.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and thank you again, panelists. We're gonna wrap up, actually. Any questions or anything that you wanna ask them, you can do that afterwards. But thank you for your time.